All right, Larry Krueger here at Levi's with the Pig in a Pickle Krug Show with a little San Francisco Giant video. That's right, we're down here at Levi's during Niner practice, but we're talking Giants. And of course, we're brought to you by Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week. And this video is brought to you by Mojo Fantasy. Check that link in the description and type in the promo code KRUG, K-R-U-E-G, and they'll match you for up to your first $100. All right, we're talking Giants in this video. Two of my favorites, Dave Flemming and Tim Kawakami. Tim on the TK podcast had the Giants announcer on his show, and there was a lot of interesting stuff that came out from Dave. Now, this kind of is the calm before the storm. I think a lot of Giants fans are anticipating the Giants are going to be very active in this free agent market. Dave said that he feels like we could see some big SF Giants news this week, maybe in advance of the winter meetings. And the two biggest names are Shohei Ohtani and Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And Shohei, it's funny, Dave commented to Tim that Shohei really likes the Giants, he really likes the organization, really likes San Francisco, really likes Buster Posey, and likes the Giants, franchise, the iconic nature of the Giants franchise. And, interesting. I mean, just the whole thing to me was very interesting. Likes Melvin, views, Dave says the fact that the Giants have Bob Melvin as their manager is a major asset in their pursuit of Shohei. He says that Melvin is an asset because of his relationship with Yu Darvish. I thought he was going to say his relationship with Ichiro, because I know it's Melvin managed Ichiro. Ichiro loves Melvin, and Ichiro is a guy who many of the young Japanese superstars respect greatly. But Dave's point was that Melvin has a great relationship with Yu Darvish, and that Japanese players really respect Yu Darvish, and that Yu Darvish has been a major mentor of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I hadn't heard that before, but Dave seemed to think that Melvin's good relationship with Yu, would be a major asset in the Giants landing Yamamoto. Dave also went on to say that he felt like the pitch to Ohtani needed to include another high-profile player coming to San Francisco or more. So that could be Yamamoto. I mean, could they be a package deal? Could the Giants, who have been widely pursuing both Yamamoto and Ohtani, sign both of those guys? Dave seemed to intimate that Ohtani, one of the big issues for Ohtani, and maybe the biggest challenge that the Giants have in getting Shohei to commit to them, is convincing him that with him and whatever other moves they make, that they can quickly pivot from what they were this year to being a major contender for a playoff spot and a World Series berth and a World Series championship. So it sounds like Shohei probably isn't coming to the Giants unless the Giants also add another player or two, and Yamamoto would be at the top of that list. Dave also added that the Giants have been in on Yamamoto for years, that they literally have been scouting him for years, they've been planning on pursuing him for years. So this is not like, hey, they just got a wild hair and decided to go after Yamamoto and Shohei, that they literally have been planning a pursuit of both players for years, and Yamamoto in particular. As far as why maybe Ohtani might consider the Giants, well, the National League now has the DH. It's like they talked a little bit about how the Giants are desperate to kind of have a new launch of the Farhan Zaidi era that now includes Bob Melvin. And then Dave commented that, of course, he expects something to go down quickly, but that the timeline on these free agent signings is often up to the player, and that the player decides if it's going to be a long, lengthy negotiation or if it's going to get done right away. He says that the Giants are definitely in on all of the biggest names in free agency. Then they talked a little bit about Sonny Gray, and he said that, he thinks the Giants could have had some interest in Sonny Gray, who went to the Cardinals on a 3-year deal for $25 million a year. So 3 years, $75 million. And Dave seemed to think that it's the kind of deal that the Giants, he could have pictured the Giants being in on, but that they bypassed going for Sonny Gray because of their interest in seeing things through to completion with Yamamoto and Ohtani and more of the top tier free agents. So I thought that was really interesting. Dave also seemed to think that Lee, the center fielder, the speedy leadoff hitter center fielder out of the KBO, that the Giants may make a run at him as well, and he may be another player that they go after. Of course, the winter meetings start in Nashville in a few days, and Tim asked Dave about two other guys that have been rumored to the Giants, and that is Matt Chapman, who played for the A's, and Bob Melvin, Gold Glove caliber third baseman. And Dave commented how, the Giants really would like to improve their defense quite a bit, and that Chapman really fits in that category. Now, the question is, what are you going to have to pay Chapman? Can you sign Chapman in addition to Ohtani, in addition to an Ohtani and a Yamamoto? Exactly how much money are the Giants willing to spend? It sounds like the Giants, because they have money coming off their payroll next year, are willing to, pass the luxury tax threshold and get into that, that a 1-year flirtation that blows out their budget. If a year from now they can kind of hit the reset and, kind of climb beneath that and not have those penalties incurred. The other name that they discussed, which I thought was really interesting, was Rhys Hoskins. Now, I'm partial to Rhys Hoskins. Why? I'm a Bay Area guy. I'm a lifelong Giants fan, but I went to Sac State. My brother lives in Sacramento. He sends his kids to Jesuit High School. Rhys Hoskins is a product of that background. He's a Jesuit High School kid who went and played for Sac State. And I think maybe the most exciting part of this TK Flemming podcast was when Dave shared how passionate Rhys Hoskins is as a Giants fan. He's a major Giants fan. He said that, when they would go into Philly, that Hoskins would be asking questions about the Giants and, where's Kipe, where's Kruk? And he was super dialed in on, on the Giants and being a NorCal guy. And that to me is cool. And that to me is, Dave said the only downside is Hoskins is not considered a great defensive first baseman. But my goodness, Lamont Wade wasn't considered a good defensive first baseman this year either, and he played first base. First base is an offensive position. Rhys Hoskins gives you a lot of right-handed power, but I think that would be really exciting if Rhys Hoskins were... Giants fans would be excited to have Rhys Hoskins. If you go after a Shohei Ohtani, you got to get him some protection in the lineup. It's great that they signed Yamamoto and Shohei together, but who's going to prevent Shohei from walking intentionally a bunch of times? Well, Rhys Hoskins could do that. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm a local guy. I love the idea of Rhys Hoskins. And I just love the idea of a guy who grew up as a passionate Giants fan and still has great passion for the Giants, wanting to be a Giant. So I think that would be really cool. To me, the perfect offseason would be Ohtani on a big money long-term deal to be the DH this year and be a two-way player starting in 2025. Yamamoto to kind of be like their modern-day Tim Lincecum. I kind of think the Giants see Bonds in Shohei and see Lincecum in Yamamoto. And I do as well. And if you could complement those two guys and get Rhys Hoskins... if you have Rhys Hoskins at first and you got Bailey behind the plate, maybe you can go with Casey Schmidt at third base, which I would prefer them to do instead of going with Matt Chapman for $150 million and trading Casey Schmidt. But to me, that was exciting to hear Dave say that Rhys Hoskins is a big-time Giants fan, and when he goes to Philly, Rhys is always talking about, the Giants and their announcers and his tie to the area. So Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Hoskins would really be great. Then they talked a little bit about Gabe Kapler, and Dave seemed to think that the Giants' kind of free fall at the end of September kind of led to Kapler's departure, and that it felt like a lot of the Giants players had checked out in September on Gabe Kapler, and that was kind of the final straw and why they decided to move on from Kapler. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then he was asked if this is going to be kind of a new era for Farhan, where he's, where maybe they have less reliance on analytics. They still use analytics, but they're not so wed to analytics across the board. And the question was, are the Giants now under Melvin and Farhan, are they going to have that same strict adherence to analytics like they had during the Kapler era? And Dave gave a very interesting answer. He said that he felt like the Giants wanted more balance and they wanted more creative tension between the manager's office and the GM's office, and less of just a one. I think Gabe Kapler basically was a way to make sure that your analytics saw the field every night. If you suggested analytics to Bruce Bochy, he would take some, he would not use some. Well, maybe Farhan was a little frustrated by that and wanted, a guy who would bring all of their analytical data to the field on a regular basis. And he got that in Kapler, but it sounds like he may have had too much of that. Like he wants there to be, like Dave emphasized that Farhan's not a meddler and that he would like a little bit more of a pushback from the manager's office when it comes to the analytics, which, immediately makes me wonder, why the hell didn't they just keep Bruce Bochy? Why didn't they just keep Bruce Bochy and have, use analytics, but don't have this strict adherence to analytics? But maybe Boch needed some time off. Who knows? You heard Sabes tell me a few weeks back that Boch didn't leave on his own terms, but it doesn't mean that Boch didn't need a break. So who knows how that all came out. I don't think we're ever really going to get the 100% true answer on that. But now it's interesting. So Boch was not analytic driven enough, so you had to have Kapler. And then Kapler was too, I don't want to say a lapdog for Farhan, but he was too, in lockstep with Farhan. And now, if you listen to Dave tell Tim his perception of it, is that he thinks Melvin will be the guy that listens to Farhan's analytics, but then picks and chooses when to adhere to them. And that sounds very similar to what I think Boch did in his first year under Farhan, but we'll find out what that balance looks like this year. But I thought that was interesting, that Kapler was too much in lockstep with Farhan as far as the analytics, and they want somebody who's going to be a little bit more independent and create a little bit more of that creative tension, and not just, hey, whatever lineup you want, whatever you want to do, whatever decisions you want, we'll just do it. It sounds like they want somebody who in the dugout who's going to listen to their analytics and at times adhere to it, but at times push back and not adhere to it. So anyway, in summary, really great podcast. I would encourage everybody to check out TK's podcast on The Athletic. This week he talked to Dave Flemming. And once again, just to kind of rehash it, the Giants are going after all the top free agents. Their number one, number two options in whatever order are clearly Ohtani and Yamamoto. They may have to sign multiple free agents to attract Ohtani. So maybe it's not a Yamamoto or Ohtani, but a Yamamoto and Ohtani type situation. And that Rhys Hoskins badly wants to be a Giant and loves, he grew up a Giants fan. He's passionate about the Giants. I thought that was very, very cool. So I don't know what's going to happen in free agency. I would say keep it locked on the Krug Show because anytime the Giants do something major, we'll be going live and doing a whole live stream, breakdown, videos, the whole deal, talking about it. But very interesting TK podcast with Dave Flemming. All right, thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. Pig in a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And thanks to Mojo Fantasy for being the title sponsor or being the sponsor of this video. Check that link in the description. Make sure you use the promo code Krug at Mojo Fantasy, and they will match you up to your first $100. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting the Krug Show on YouTube.